Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program is brought to you by Calhoun's. When it's football time in Tennessee, it is tailgating time at Calhoun's. Grab a Feed 5 or Feed 10 party pack for your high school or your UT tailgate. Or eat down by the river before or after games. Or grab Calhoun's food inside Neyland Stadium at their locations. Calhoun's, the taste of Tennessee. When you think football, think Calhoun's. All right, want to welcome in the next two members of our panel, two of our longest-serving, longest-tenured guys, longtime sports writers. Bob Hodge right here, Chuck Cavaleris down there, who will be seeing back in his new Chucky C-Note Casino a little later. Hot reads, we do this every year. Two questions, one for each pair, and I'm going to start down there, and I'll give you guys the offensive line. Trey Smith was back. Brandon Kennedy was back. Two hotshot freshmen were going to play. And it still looked the same. In fact, they might have rotated too many people. You had 10 guys yesterday or 9 guys that rotated on the offensive line all around there. Your thoughts on the fact that they still couldn't run block very well, still couldn't protect Jarrett Garantano very well. Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah, I mean, it just looked like pretty much of the same, didn't it? I mean, was the tone not set early? When you've heard all this, we're going to be more physical, we're going to run the ball. You come out first play, a deep ball that has no chance of being completed. And then you throw a swing pass that turns into an interception turnover. Yeah, and then right then Georgia State goes down, they're up 7. So offensive line, it was just like still waiting for something good to happen, aren't you?
Well, one of the things we talked about all offseason, it was mentioned that last segment, was how much, we're bigger now. Bigger on the line of scrimmage. We're bigger on the offensive line. Didn't make any difference, Jimmy.
It didn't look like they were more physical. And that's it. It doesn't matter if you're bigger, if you're not stronger, that negates that. I do think this. I understand the idea that you want to work with a lot of different combinations with your offensive line in practice. I think that's fine and good if you've got some really good players. I think if you've got some marginal players or below average players and you're trying to play them at guard and tackle or guard and center, I don't think it works. I think that combination did not allow for Tennessee to be very cohesive. Look, if you got Bruce Wilkerson, he can play all over the place, right? He's good enough to do that. With this group, I don't think you can do that, and I'm not so sure that didn't cause some confusion with that group.
But it was almost like it was approached for a preseason game. Did anybody else kind of have that feeling, the way you're shuffling people around, and how are you going to get some continuity there?
I wonder if they didn't go into that game thinking, well, we don't have to show them everything we got, we can take care of this team, and then they realized, and they couldn't dig themselves out of the hole.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think that did creep into it. Yep.
Well, the other question is, though, when you're rotating this many guys, then at camp you don't have clear starters. Right. So clearly there were no dominant players that said, those are our 3 starters. Those are the 3 guys we're going to ride with. You're rotating guys in. So that signals a problem to me, is that you start looking at that rotation, we really don't know who's our best group.
Last week, right in that seat, Mike Stoll was here on our all VFL show, and Mike will be with us on Tennessee road games this year. He's part of our VFL crew. I asked him, I said, if you've got 10 offensive linemen, do you have 5? And he was like, that's not a good sign. And it's not a good sign. It's the same thing as the quarterback, only multiply it by 5. Yeah. Let's talk about the defensive line. Aubrey Solomon was the guy that everyone wanted cleared, and his first big play was getting pushed back into the end zone on Georgia State's first touchdown. Not trying to single out Aubrey Solomon, but I mean, here's the thing. There were a lot of people that acted like he was going to be Superman. We said this Friday on your radio show. Guy didn't play a lot at Michigan. He played more as a freshman than he did as a sophomore. You need college bodies. Thank God they've got him, because imagine what they'd look like without him. But if you're thinking he's Superman, you need the whole Justice League. You need more than one Superman. Let me show you something. Georgia State, 213 yards on 53 carries. And they converted short yardage like Alabama would against Tennessee. I looked yesterday. Look at all these 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. They converted them all except for the very last one with 2 minutes to go. And they ran it every time. No trick play, just run, converted, run, converted, run, converted. Guys, that defensive line, here's the thing. That may be the worst game you play all year in terms of losing, in terms of the overall team. But when your defensive line gets run on for 4 yards of carry by Georgia State, what the heck's going to happen when you're playing SEC teams?
Well, one of your problems with that defensive line you got now, I just don't think they're very good. But number 2, you don't have enough of the even not very good guys to have a rotation like you need to have in this division of football nowadays. I think, 8 guys would be like what you could play and have confidence in? What has Tennessee got? I mean, Right now, it doesn't look like they have any. I'm thinking that will improve before it's over with, but you're way short of 8, maybe 5.
Yeah, maybe.
And so at the end of the game, when Georgia State said, yeah, we wore them down, okay, it shouldn't happen against Georgia State, but still you see why you do run down. You're playing maybe 10, 15 plays more a game than what you
Than the
would in
other
a
guys.
normal rotation.
Well, here's my biggest problem, though, is at the beginning of the game, you weren't winning either. And you weren't winning with what you thought were your first 5. You weren't beating guys. I mean, they got pushed back, and then you say, okay, maybe 1 or 2 plays you get high and the guy gets you and you get pushed off the line. But I never saw somebody go through the gap
Yes.
and make a
Right.
play in the backfield
Right.
either. So you're talking about the Georgia State offensive line whipped the defensive line on almost every single play they were out there.
I even had a conversation with Tennessee's defense, and this was in the first half. Okay, are they doing that? Let's not penetrate thing, hold up the line, and see if our linebackers can make plays, because that's what it looked like they were doing.
It looked like they were offensive line there for a little bit, except they were doing the moonwalk.
They were also bringing a lot of pressure from the secondary, which makes me wonder if they already realized we're not going to get much pressure from our front.
Well, you're not, because, I mean, you talk about it. Darrell Taylor maybe had 2 pass rushes, but the rest of the game he was quiet too. And no one else on the front, linebackers or defensive line guys had any penetration or pass rush at all.
Darrell Taylor was in pass coverage a couple of times too.
Yeah.
Well, and I hate that pressure stat. You know, they have it in the NFL. Oh, we got 5 pressures and everything. Well, in this case, it would be interesting to see what it was, because out of your defensive linemen, what did you maybe get out of their passes? 6,
I'd say less than that.
maybe less.
Here's another thing. Darrell Taylor said after the game that they had worked on the option. He said, we didn't get a lot of time to work on it. They work on it every day. We got to work on it for a week. Well, all fall camp. I thought, all fall camp, you look that bad? I got news for you. I'm going to guess every team on your schedule is right now putting in a
option
package for Tennessee with the options. So Tennessee's going to have to learn to stop that at some point.
We know BYU and the lower teams on your rank are definitely doing that for sure. Maybe not Alabama.
Well, they
'cause
might have to.
They don't need to.
But I mean, if you're playing a South Carolina or somebody, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody didn't run a little bit more option your way after watching that. When we come back, it's my favorite segment that's back. 3 up, 3 down. We've got the Doves and the Vultures. Both of them have a challenge. One in whittling the bad down to 3, and the other one in just finding 3 guys that played pretty well. That's next. Come on back on the Sports Source.